Grassy Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to another episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom Grassi, and today we are breaking down what I believe will be the final 53-man roster for the Green Bay Packers. And I'm not going to lie, this took a lot of time to go through, and I'm very unsure about a couple of these positions. Obviously, we're going to have to make some hard cuts at wide receiver. We have our backup quarterback situation. Even tight end is looking a little bit murky of who's going to be that third string. And then, of course, we also have linebacker issues and cornerback. But before we jump into that, I want to say this episode is brought to you by Allergic to Fun, my debut comedy album that just came out this past weekend. Hit number 1 on Amazon, stayed there for all of Friday, and then went back down to number 2 because Jim Gaffigan is a monster. If you want to check that out, you can pick up a digital copy on iTunes or Amazon. And if you want a physical copy, those will be shipped out next week. You can pick those up at tomgrossicomedy.com. Thank you for the support. Now, let's jump into these roster predictions, and starting with the offense, which arguably is going to be where some of the more interesting decisions are going to have to be made. But taking a look at quarterback, because why not? Let's just jump right in. I have a good feeling about this Aaron Rodgers kid. I feel like he's really going to make the team. He's been looking pretty impressive, but the coaches didn't even play him in the Week 3 preseason game, so he could be on the bubble. So, of course, Aaron Rodgers is going to make it, and now it's going to be a decision of, are the Packers going to be keeping 3 quarterbacks, or are they going to stick with 2? And then if they're just sticking with 2, are they going with Brett Hundley, or are they going with DeShone Kizer? So, in this prediction, I think that they're just going to stick with 2 quarterbacks, and I think they're going to roll with the new guy, DeShone Kizer. And there's a couple of reasons why. Brett Hundley was hyped up for the past few years before he walked on the field to play during the regular season when Aaron Rodgers got injured last year. And, I had a lot of confidence in him. He looked amazing in preseason games, and then it kind of all just fell apart. Now, he did win some crucial games, like, going to overtime against the Browns. Who could forget that wonderful game? And he put us in a position at least where Aaron Rodgers could make a comeback, but he fell short. But that being said, I think just the way that Brett Hundley has been playing, or showed that he played last year, and also this preseason, I just think the coaches have seen everything that Brett Hundley has to offer. And so because of that, DeShone Kizer does have that potential. He does have that unknown. He is a second-round draft pick. I think that they're going to roll with DeShone Kizer. Even though he looked terrible in this past Friday's game against the Raiders, I think at least he can grow. Now, if I had my way, I would love to pick up a veteran QB to be a backup for Aaron Rodgers, but I don't see the Packers doing that anytime soon. And so with that, I think those are the 2 that they're going to be sticking with, meaning that Brett Hundley is going to get cut at QB. With running back, this is a little bit easier. We got Ty Montgomery, Jamal Williams, and, of course, Aaron Jones. You also throw your fullback in there, Aaron Ripkowski. There has been some talks of getting rid of the fullback position completely, but I think they'll still roll with Rip because why not? Now, tight end, we have Jimmy Graham, Mercedes Lewis, who I think are obviously going to be locks for the team. And then the third one, for me, it's between Lance Kendricks and Robert Tonyan. And I think they'll wind up going with Kendricks, but just for the sake of, I'm hoping they don't. Kendricks did not look really great in last Friday's game. He doesn't really have a whole lot to offer for the team because Mercedes Lewis is going to be the primary blocker. And so I think they're going to go with Tonyan. And he's like this kind of up-and-comer. He's looked good during the preseason, and he has a lot more potential. So I hope the Packers are going to roll with him. So they'll be having 3 tight ends. Now, let's not wait any further. Let's go to the wide receiver race, which by far I think is the most open race. And this is where we're going to make some tough decisions. So the people that we know are going to make the team: Devontae Adams, Geronimo Allison, Randall Cobb. After that, it gets a little bit more dicey. Now, here, don't crucify me for this because I have my reasons. So those are your 3 that I think are locked. Now, I believe that the Packers will wind up keeping 7 wide receivers on the team just because of the amount of talent and potential that they all have. They obviously went very hard on the draft, and I think that will show on the final roster as well. So, the guy who has impressed me this entire offseason, he obviously didn't play last week in the preseason game, but his first two, he looked amazing. He has the eye of Aaron Rodgers, and that's Jake Kumerow. The guy is impressed in every opportunity that he's been given, and Aaron Rodgers likes him, which is a big plus. So that's your fourth guy right there. Jamon Moore. All right, so I'm like going back and forth on this. But the reason why I say Moore is going to be on the team is that Mike McCarthy has expressed confidence in him. He played well in week 3. He has the talent. He was a pretty high draft pick. I don't see the Packers letting him go away. I think they're going to allow him to develop as a player here in Green Bay. So that's your number 5. This is where it gets a little dicey. All right, your number 6, I think they're going to roll with Equanimeous St. Brown or ESB. And the logic part of me is saying no, because in my opinion, he really hasn't done anything in these preseason games to stand out from the rest of the pack. If anything, I think he's actually been outplayed by guys like MVS, which is Scantling. I think he's been outplayed by those kinds of guys, and obviously Kumerow. But here's why I don't see them getting rid of ESB, is because if they try to sign him to the practice squad, another team is going to see his talent and is going to pick him up. I mean, that's almost guaranteed. And so the Packers know that it's essentially they either have to sign him to a roster spot or they're going to lose the potential that this kid brings to the table. And so because of that reason alone, I think they're going to give him a roster spot. Not that I necessarily agree with it, because I understand the potential that he has. In this preseason, he hasn't really shown it, though. But I think he's going to get it. And then this final spot for wide receiver, this is the most difficult part. I think they're going to wind up going with Trevor Davis. There's only one reason why I think they're going to go with Trevor Davis, and that's because he returns kicks. Because the inconsistency that we have at punt returner and kick returners is terrible. Quentin Rollins can't do it. Ty Montgomery can't do it. Randall Cobb's getting tired of it. There's talks of getting Jair Alexander back there, but considering how he's been playing, do you want to really risk his health? And so that's the only reason why I'm going with Trevor Davis over Scantling. Now, this is also one of those areas where I think it could go either way. They could see the potential in Scantling and sign him, or they could go with someone that they need. It's a need position in that they need a punt returner, and they'll go with Trevor Davis. But in this example, I'm going to say they stick with Trevor Davis, and he'll be the 7th and final wide receiver on the Packers for the 53-man lineup. Now, let's take a look at our atrocious offensive line. You have obvious starters like David Bakhtiari, you got Lane Taylor, you got Corey Linsley, Justin McCray, Lucas Patrick, Brian Bulaga, Jason Spriggs. The ones that, here's where I'm a little hesitant on. I think, unfortunately, well, you guys have Adam Pankey is also going to make the team. Kyle Murphy, I think, is just going to make the team because we need depth. Even though he was atrocious last week, didn't look good. The entirety of the offensive line didn't look good. And so I think they're going to keep Kyle Murphy just as a backup, even though I'm not too happy about that. And the other guy I think they're going to wind up picking is Byron Bell. Now, this guy was really, really bad week 3. Hasn't really been that impressive. But the only reason why I think they're going to keep him is because we need the depth at right tackle. With Brian Bulaga, we're hoping that he's ready to play. But right now, Jason Spriggs is your starting right tackle with Bulaga out. They need depth at that position, which is why I think Byron Bell is unfortunately going to make the team just out of necessity, because I think there's going to come a point where we're going to have to beef up that offensive line, because as a starting unit, they are great. Of course, you have David Bakhtiari, who I think is the best, if not one of the best, left tackles in the league. But after that starting lineup, it starts falling down rapidly. So because of that, I think they're going to wind up getting Bell and holding on to him for at least a bit, because they just need the depth there. So with that being said, that's 26, if you were keeping track at home. 26 members of the offense that they're going to be signing. I'll do special teams real quick. This is just super duper easy. This can get locked up. You have your long snapper, Hunter Bradley, who I did that infamous video on. You have Mason Crosby, and you have beautiful J.K. Scott. So there's your 3 right there, giving you a total of 29 players. Now, let's head on over to the defense and take a look at what we got here. for defensive end, I see them obviously holding on to Muhammad Wilkerson because he has that 1-year prove-it deal, so we'll see what he could do with that. Mike Daniels, Dean Lowry, and Montravius Adams, so there's your 4 defensive ends. For nose tackle, the only guy I think they're going to roll with is Kenny Clark. Outside linebacker, here's a position where we definitely need some help with. You got Clay Matthews. I think that Reggie Gilbert's definitely going to make the team. You have Nick Perry. I think Vince Beagle's going to make the team. And here's my guy it's going to be one or the other. I think Kyler Fackrell is going to make the team. He's a former 3rd-round pick. He's been a bit disappointing. But because of the lack of talent we really have at this position, and it's only a matter of time before guys like Clay Matthews go down because they're always injured, I think they're going to sign him to the team. If it was up to me, I say you release him, but it's going to be between Kyler Fackrell and this other guy we're going to talk about momentarily. So that's where I'm seeing this. Inside linebacker, I think you have obviously Blake Martinez, Oren Burks. It doesn't look like his injury is too serious. We just got Antonio Morrison from the Colts, and then Ahmed Thomas, who has done enough to keep a spot. And of course, you need to kind of keep an eye on Oren Burks to see how bad that injury really is. Even though they're reporting it's not that bad, you might just need another guy to step up and take that spot. And so I think they'll maintain Thomas on the team. Cornerback, here we go. Where it used to be our worst issue, I mean, this is looking pretty good. I like our cornerback crew right now. We have Tramon Williams, the veteran. We have Jair Alexander, Kevin King. You have Josh Jackson, Devon House, and I think they're going to wind up rolling with Josh Hawkins as well. Now, if you'll notice, there's one notable name that I have omitted from this, and that is Quentin Rollins. Quentin Rollins, the former 2nd-round pick, has really been disappointing, is obviously coming back from injury, has not looked good this entire preseason. So, in my opinion, I think because the cornerback position looks pretty stacked, I think they're going to let Rollins walk away. Now, if they don't, I see them getting rid of Fackrell. I think it's one or the other. One of these guys are going to stay on the team. It could go either way. You know, they might want to give Rollins one more season, but he can't return kicks, and he really doesn't look great at cornerback. I know they talked about moving him to safety, which is where he might be able to get a roster spot because of his versatility. But for the most part, I think Rollins is going to go. But again, it could be Fackrell. Either one, I'm still a little bit up in the air with that. And then for safety, you have your HaHa Clinton Dix, you have Josh Jones, and you have Kentrell Bryce and Jermaine Whitehead. So this lineup for safety position, doesn't really impress me too much. Josh Jones obviously looking good. Clinton Dix playing like he usually does. But with Bryce and Whitehead, it's a little bit more shaky. So I could see if they wanted to roll with Rollins, putting him in the safety position just because he can go back and forth. That could be his saving grace for this team. But in this scenario, I see him getting cut. And then them sticking with an outside linebacker because they definitely need help on that end. But that is just my opinion, so please let me know what you think about this 53-man roster, and that was 24 people on defense if you're keeping score at home, and I did the math and checked it 74 times, and that is 53 players. So again, the big notable cuts, Brett Hundley, Lance Kendricks, I see MVS or Trevor Davis getting cut, and then it's either going to be Quentin Rollins or Kyler Fackrell getting cut. But let me know what you think. I'm curious, so let me know in the comments down below. You could always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com, TomGrossi Comedy, or Tom Grossi Comedy on the Twitter and the Instagram. You can check out Tom Grossi Comedy for all the wonderful things that we're doing here. Packcast, we're on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, TuneIn, and of course here on the YouTube. So thank you so much for watching, and just think about it this way. In about a week and a half, we'll be watching Football That Matters, and I could not be more excited. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi, and as always, go Pack Go.